The Genesis G80 gets a refresh for the 2025 model year, and in this video I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect and the pricing and how it compares to the competition. And I think the pricing is the most interesting thing about this vehicle now, but as far as the styling changes here for 2025, so up front there you can see there is some slight tweaks. You have a larger grille now for 2025. They also have slightly tweaked the headlights. It's the same kind of shape, but they have some new internals in them there to make them a little more advanced. You also have here on this top 3.5T Sport Prestige version, we have here, you have the unique front bumper, which is a little sportier with the air intakes being a little more aggressive than a regular G80, but all G80s get a revised front bumper as well. On the sides here, you do have the same 20-inch wheels as the previous Sport, which I thought was a great looking wheel. I'm glad they didn't change it, honestly. And you also have still all the same other stuff on the sides here, like the very cool turn signals integrated into the front fenders. And then going out to the back there, you will see that you have some slightly tweaked taillights as well as a new rear bumper there. And it's a nice change for sure, although I'm not sure if I love this new cement kind of gray color we have here, although the red interior on this one is beautiful. But yeah, I think on the outside though, it's a nice change. I think the car was already very beautiful to begin with, and so I'm glad they didn't honestly change it too much. But let's check out that interior where there are some big changes. So yes, this interior is dramatically changed here for 2025. You can see the entire front part of this interior, especially the dashboard and all that, has been completely thrown out for this new setup we have here. And we've seen this across some of the other new Genesis models. I just talked about this in the GV80 recently. It looks really great here though, especially in red, with the metal and you know, other accents you have here, the red stitching and all that. It looks so good. And I like that they kept some of the best components of this interior still. And so anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have these really nice, soft, comfortable seats still. I think they're about the same as before, but we do have this new diamond quilting pattern, which is beautiful. They're really big, you know, quilted sections, very plush feeling seats. They also are, of course, heated and ventilated, and they have a simple massage. It's not super advanced, but you know, is a nice little feature and will actually come on automatically when you've been driving for over an hour. The steering wheel is also fantastic. That is another new thing here for 2025. Has a flat bottom, a really nice metal section, but I mean the red and the stitching, it's just fantastic. The stitching around the airbag cover, the new Genesis logo we have here, just looks so nice. And we do have, you know, some metal controller wheels here and toggles, but we do also have this touch sensitive capacitive kind of thing, which I don't like. It's not very accurate still. Other companies have tried these and I don't like them in other companies either. So that's the only thing. I wish that was just another little, you know, metal control wheel or something. But aside from that, just a fantastic wheel. It feels so good in your hands here. Moving on to the gauges, which is just part of this giant single piece 27-inch OLED screen that we have here for these, that does double duty, of course, with the infotainment as well. And I just love that there's no brakes and that it's so seamless, especially when you're in the native Genesis systems here, where you have, you know, this horizon kind of view that blends over into everything. And like when you're running navigation, again, with the Genesis navigation app, you know, you can have everything really nicely blended. But anyway, getting back to just the gauge portion of it here, you know, it's pretty customizable. You can have it really simple, so it just shows you like your speedometer, or you can have the tach added in there, and you have a few little views you can change as far as your drive modes can change the views of those gauges. You can also just manually change it if you'd like. And there's some of the usual stuff there in the middle you can scroll through, and some, you know, different complications on the right there. It's a little more tricky. There's a little bit more of a learning curve with customizing this over the pre-refresh version, which was a little more straightforward in the past, but you know, it still is fine. Once you learn it, it should be totally okay once you have it set to what you like. Just, you know, a little bit more fumbling around to get it exactly the way I wanted it to be, at least. But a really nice high resolution display. And then coming over to the other portion of it here, it's a really beautiful, again, crisp, clear, very thin bezel screen as well, and just looks so good. And the greatest news is that it finally has wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. That was something that's been missing from, you know, Hyundai Group products in general, and they finally have been fixing that here for the 2025 model year in a bunch of them. And so it's great you have that. It worked flawlessly, by the way, this week. A very good integration of CarPlay, not just integrated, you know, in a glitchy way like some other companies sometimes do. This has really been seamless and flawless. And then otherwise, you know, as far as, you know, tuning radio stations, all that stuff is really nice with these new menus. And I especially love that, unlike Hyundai and Kia, this actually will display the song information, you know, the title and the artist, on the actual listening screen, which is something that you can't do with the Hyundai and the Kia systems without having to bring up a whole separate dedicated thing that takes up the whole screen just if you want to see that song title and artist. And so the fact that this has it, I really prefer the Genesis software over what you get in the Hyundai and the Kia, and everything else just works really well, and yeah, really nicely done. Coming down, you have this redesigned climate control area. It's really nice. We still do have physical knobs and some nice shortcut buttons here, but I mean, volume and tune knobs, especially tune knobs, are rare these days, so it's so nice and easy to tune radio stations with that, and nice separate knobs there for your climate as well, so it's not combined like we see with Kia, for example. Just a really nice setup here, you know, with doing all the little basics here on the little screen. And you can see the big differences. In prior Genesis models, you had like this area underneath of here was opened up. Now it's been closed off, so you think that would hurt your storage space, and it potentially does a tiny bit, but I think this looks really nice because you can now also have some padding down here by your knee, and it's really padded all the way through, and it's really nice to rest your knee on there. But you'll see they did retain the controller wheel and the shifter, which are beautiful pieces on their own, have some really nice buttons there on them too. But that's really the only thing that transferred over here up front, and I'm glad those are the things that they decided to keep. But you also have your two cup holders right next to it, and you do have a new wireless charging pad right here behind all that, and that was, again, used to be housed more farther forward here under the climate controls. But these are really good wireless charging pads. Hyundai, Kia, Genesis Group, they all do really good wireless charging pads, some of the best in my experience recently, because they're rubberized and they just have a wide contact patch, so you actually do reliable charging of your phone on here, and it's just really well done, and nice that it's just a nice open tray to just drop your phone in there very easily. And then you have the center armrest, which is nice and softly padded, and you open that up, it splits in the middle still, and you have two USB-C jacks and a regular power outlet in there, and great that you have, you know, that extra hookup in there. You also have pockets in your doors here, and so I mean, that's pretty much it. Again, not a ton of space, but for a sedan, I'd say it's pretty much par for the course. The one other really cool thing though with this refresh is we now have a Bang & Olufsen stereo. Previously, I think it was a Lexicon stereo in the Genesis, but here it's an 18 speaker 1400 watt stereo, and it sounds really good. The Lexicon ones in the past were okay, but this is really a very good stereo, and yeah, I just really have been enjoying listening to it this week. It has a great surround sound effect that's customizable, and just, yeah, a really nice setup. Moving on here to the back seat, that's all the same, you know, so you have their dedicated air vents there. They have their own little climate controls with their heated seats. The one thing to note though is that if you want access to the USB-C jacks, you got to fold down that whole center armrest, where you'll also find your cup holders, and then open up that center cubby, and then you'll have you know, the space there with the two USB-C jacks. But there's no pass-through or anything either, so you have to, you know, have that down, and you know, it's just unfortunate that you have to only have those USB-C jacks if you want to do, you know, a 4-person setup in here. But still, you know, very soft, comfortable back seats, lots of space, and you also have this double pane panoramic moonroof here, which is just beautiful, and a really nice view for those rear seat occupants as well. Trunk space, again, is the same as before. Nothing really new there. It's a nice, long, wide space, but there is a spare tire under the floor still, which is nice and something that's becoming increasingly more rare these days. So really great that we have that as well. But let's start it up and go for a drive. The Genesis here has the new Genesis key fob, which is a really nice fob. I love the, you know, texture and the dimension on it here, and some nice metal buttons there, including the remote parking thing. You can, you know, pull it forwards or backwards in your parking space, and just a really nice key. But of course, it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the Genesis G80. So mechanically, these are all the same. So if you're familiar with this generation of G80, and especially these, you know, 3.5T sport versions, no surprises here for 2025 as far as that goes. But to me, that's a very good thing, because it was a fantastic riding and driving car already. And so I'm honestly happy they didn't change anything on it, because it was basically perfection in my mind. But anyway, for those that are unfamiliar, you have great visibility here, nice thin A-pillars. You have the 360 cameras, which gives you even like this now like out of car view, which is really cool and very helpful too if you're in tight spaces, you're trying to figure out if you're parked well or whatever. And yeah, you know, just a really nice, easy vehicle to maneuver and drive. And especially it's easy to maneuver because we have reversible steering here in this top 3.5T Sport Prestige version. And that is so nice to have. Helps you, you know, maneuver in tighter spaces, and just also gives you much better handling, as you'll see in a few minutes here, and also extra stability. And so, yeah, everything else works really well too. The only minor nitpick I can say is that the throttle response, sometimes when you're stopped and you're, you know, quickly starting again, that's where, I think it's just the transmission is trying to figure out if it wants to start in first or second, and that little delay, that thinking delay, sometimes means that I hit the gas and I'm like, okay, I'm like leaning forward, like, okay, where's the power? And then it comes on. Again, we're talking about a split second here, but it's just a split second delay that I'm not expecting, at least not yet. You know, maybe it's something you'll get used to, but you know, if you're in a hurry, you're like, ah, come on, where's the power? Or someone's like waving you on, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go, and then, like, you know, that 1 second beat is sometimes annoying. So that's the only thing I can say, but it doesn't really mar what is otherwise a fantastic driving experience here in the G80. The brakes feel really nice and smooth, and the ride is very smooth as well. This has this adaptive damper system that uses cameras to monitor the road and will preemptively prime the suspension, you know, for bumps and undulations and all that, to make sure that the ride is as smooth as possible. And it works really well. I gotta say, I don't have a ton of experience with a lot of the competitors. I have driven the new E-Class in the all-terrain wagon version, but I'd say this is definitely one of the smoothest riding vehicles in this class that I've experienced, you know, in a while. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and put it up into the Sport Plus drive mode, which the Sport Plus drive mode in particular is exclusive here to the Sport Prestige version here, and does turn off traction control as well. Let's turn down onto this back road and see how it does. Here we go. All right, kind of comes on in waves. It kind of feels like it does certainly limit the torque a little bit there whenever you first get on it, probably just to preserve the transmission a little bit here. But it's nice and punchy, and has a good sound to it as well. It's just the classic 3.5 liter twin turbocharged V6 we're used to here from Genesis. It does 375 horsepower still, 391 pound-feet of torque. And whenever Car and Driver tested the pre-refresh version, they got a 4.7 seconds 0 to 60. That shouldn't have changed with the refresh here, so expect the same kind of performance easily, you know, under 5 seconds 0 to 60. And it's nice and punchy, but it doesn't do it in a vicious way. It's a very smooth accelerating vehicle, and that's where I think, you know, you'll see some of the other competitors that have a little bit less power are able to do a similar 0 to 60 time, because I think they're a little stronger with the transmission or whatever, or they're able to launch harder than this does. This just runs the Hyundai, Kia, Genesis. They have their own 8-speed torque converter automatic. That's what we're running here. And it's a really smooth transmission, and, you know, for a vehicle like this, even though it is, you know, a sporty version, most people, you know, just want smoothness over all else. And so I think this focuses on that and prioritizes that correctly. And so that's why, you know, it's a smooth shifting transmission whenever you're just cruising around, but it might not be the most responsive whenever you are in a hurry. You know, as far as downshifts though, that's all really good. It's just, again, that little bit of a delay sometimes. But we'll try out the manual shifts here, see if that's been tweaked at all. So there's still like this slight torque delay, but so, you know, you can hear when I pull the paddle and when it actually starts changing RPM there. It's a little bit of a delay. Honestly, this vehicle is good enough with the shifting. I would just leave it out of the manual mode. Just leave it in drive, and it's usually going to figure out pretty well what you want to do. I also, though, love the one thing that you always see with the Genesis models is whenever you do go into the Sport or that Sport Plus mode, it tightens up the side bolsters if you don't have them tight already, and that's always a fun little touch. And also, this road we're on sometimes generates some road noise, and here, it's really pretty quiet. Very refined, of course, like you'd expect from a Genesis. But coming up some corners here I always take, and let's see how the G80 Sport handles. So we have these 245 wide tires in the front. They're 275s in the rear, Pirelli P0 all-season tires. Not the sportiest tire. I think that could really help the grip levels a lot if you could, you know, just swap tires, which is a very easy, you know, thing to do on your own if you'd like. But what I really love though is this reversible steer, which, I mean, it actually grabbed this seatbelt a little tighter, because anytime you do any higher G maneuvers, it grabs onto that seatbelt and holds you in tight as well. But you know, it's really dynamic, and that's what I love with reversible steer in anything, is it just gives you really great handling, and really disguises the weight and the size of many of these modern vehicles. And like this one, for example, weighs, I believe, about 4,500 pounds or so. And I mean, so it's, you know, a heavy vehicle, but yeah, honestly, all that all that's, maybe letting me down slightly is the tires, but even those, they're not really even screeching. It's just, I can tell they have some limits there. If I pushed it a little bit further, I'd probably find those limits. But for spirited driving on a back road like this, it's completely fine. You also get some bigger brakes here, of course, on the sport versions. It's a very well-balanced vehicle, as far as all that goes, very well-rounded. We have those adaptive dampers, like I talked about earlier, that, whenever you're in the sport modes here, do firm things up a little bit, but it still feels like I'm gliding over all these roads, even though, there is really no body roll. It's very poised and composed, but it's just nice. You have that little bit of extra stiffness there in that Sport Plus mode as well. And the Sport mode also is a great mode if you still want to retain your traction control here, which, you don't need to worry about traction too much. It still does have an all-wheel drive system, so that's going to make sure you don't, get too wild with your traction situation. But man, this thing is so... It really, every single time I'm diving into a corner, it just grabs on with this seatbelt for dear life, and it's like, hold on. I don't know if it's just trying to hold me in place better, or if it's like a crash prevention kind of thing or what. But it's kind of funny every time I'm pushing it. There it goes again. It's very immediate. I think it must be part of their attempts to just improve safety, because it's very preemptive with the slightest little bit of G input there. So that might be a little bit annoying if you do a lot of backroads carving, to be honest. But maybe there's a way to turn that off or something. I'm not sure. But aside from that, it's just so good. Honestly, it comes down to your personal preference, but I love how soft and smooth this is. The seats are soft and smooth. Everything is so luxurious, yet the fact that this can do the backroads attack so well, and it's so dynamic. It didn't feel like it was being held back by its weight or its luxury. It just honestly feels great, especially again, just the rear wheel steer is the biggest game changer that I absolutely love. And so if you're going for, or trying to cross shop between like a regular G80 Sport or one of these top ones with the rear wheel steer, honestly I'd say you got to spring for the ones with the rear wheel steer, because it is just such a fantastic improvement, and absolutely to me is worth the extra money for that system. And so yeah, but now we can go ahead and pop it out of the drive modes here. There's also a My mode, by the way, so you can customize exactly what you want as far as, do you want the more aggressive shifts, or do you want to have smoother shifts but have everything else be sporty? You can customize all that there in the system, which is great. And now out on the highway here in the G80 Sport, it's a really nice highway cruiser. Again, this thing can just turn into a rolling sofa here in comfort mode, and it makes it really nice. But we do have some corners here. We're going around gentle corners, and I have the adaptive cruise control system on. It's the highway drive assist system, which does do the steering assist. Now it's still a hands-on system, but it's doing a very good job here. Sometimes in the past, some of the Hyundai, Kia, Genesis products haven't been the best with holding the lines and making sure they don't go over the road lines and stuff, but this one so far has been doing pretty well. And Genesis in general, it seems like they've been doing a slightly better job here in the past year or so here. So yeah, I really think it's a pretty good system here overall. I'll continue to keep using it here for the next few minutes. But the other really key differentiator here is as far as the safety tech you get here in the G80. While many of the other competitors will still charge you expensive packages in order to get things like adaptive cruise control and some of the more advanced safety features, this has it all pretty much as standard. And again, that's a big savings compared to some of the others. That savings in reality for some companies isn't quite as large as others, but regardless, that is just one thing that you don't have to worry about here with this, is making sure there's some option box checked to have adaptive cruise in your expensive luxury car. It's kind of ridiculous the other companies still are doing that, but I love that Genesis isn't. And so it means that all the basic stuff is covered, of course, is just as standard because it's the Genesis, but also all those advanced things too you basically get here. And it continues to do a really good job of holding the road lines here, and the head-up display does a really good job of letting me know when it's doing that steering assist and what cars it's seeing, what's in my blind zones, how close the car is in front of me, the lines it's seeing on the road, all that stuff it does do very well. And all right, so there's a little bit of ping pong in there. I'm babysitting the wheel here closely because we got cars around us, but it is yeah, there for a split second there I was like, okay, what are you inching over there for? And now it's straightening out a little bit. So again, probably still not the best system in my mind. As far as confidence, I think there are some that do a little bit of a better job, but I think for most people it's going to be fine, especially if you don't live in an area with windy highways like we have here in southwestern Pennsylvania. Fuel economy for the G80 is rated at 16 mpg in the city, 24 on the highway, and 19 combined. And in my driving here, which I didn't do much highway driving, it was mostly city, around town, suburban kind of driving, I've been averaging 18.1 mpg. I haven't put a ton of miles on this, but I'm just kind of impressed because typically I'll get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating in my driving. So I was expecting, 16 or so, maybe even a little bit less. And so to be getting 18, I mean, that's not super exciting either. I really can't wait for the hybrid Genesis models to come, which they have said are coming. Because, this motor's just, it's thirsty. I mean, we're getting, V8-like fuel economy. I mean, it's a twin-turbo V6 that does V8-like power, so, I guess that, lines up, but it's just... it's a thirsty one for sure, and I think some of the other competitors do slightly better fuel economy. And so that's just, the one thing you're gonna have to make your peace with is, getting 18 mpg if you, drive like I do around here. Again, your mileage will of course vary, but, don't expect good fuel economy out of this. Now you can go down to the base 2.5T motor, which still does 300 horsepower in that 4-cylinder. That will hopefully give you slightly better fuel economy if you don't need all this power, but then you lose out on some of the extra goodies like the rear-wheel steer and some of the higher end features here if you just go for that 2.5T Sport Prestige. But, again, it is what it is. This is an expensive vehicle, so, fuel costs shouldn't matter too much. And that is the last thing to mention here, though, is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So, as far as pricing goes, these start almost at $71,000, like $70,850. This one, as tested, is $78,250. And by the way, that pricing I'm talking about is for the 3.5T versions. If you want to go for one of the 2.5, you can get these cheaper. But the pricing has gone up by a couple $1,000s, and as the pricing continues to rise, yes, some of the competitors have their prices continue to rise as well, but there's not as much of a value gap here for the Genesis like there used to be. It used to be that this was undercutting everyone by a wide margin, and it was a no-brainer if you're looking for value and you're okay not having a German brand, like Genesis was the easy go-to pick. But then BMW came out with the new 5 Series for the 2024 model year, and the pricing even for 2025 here is actually pretty close to the pricing of this. So for a comparable 540i, same kind of performance as this, actually identical horsepower, and loading one of those up to be comparable to this as far as feature content, those are only like $2,250 more expensive than this. So it's a $2,000 premium for a BMW, especially with the sway of those more prestigious brands. That makes it really tough, honestly. How many people for basically the same money are going to take a Genesis over a BMW? Sure, there's a few people that just don't like BMWs for whatever reason, don't like the styling, whatever, take your pick. There's a wide variety of reasons why you wouldn't like BMW. Again, just personal preference stuff. But, it's just that it's too close. It's just too close in price. Now, the things I will say, like, you don't get rear-wheel steer, I don't believe, in the 540i with the regular M Sport package. I don't think there's any way to get rear-wheel steer in that, so that is one nice advantage of this. I also don't think you can get massage seats in that 540 versus the massage you do get here in this. And there might be one or two other, minor differences, but you're getting largely the same car, largely the same performance, and honestly probably faster shifts as well, because that uses a ZF 8-speed, which is fantastic, really snappy, while still being really smooth. I think it's a better transmission for sure than this. So you're getting all that stuff in a BMW for basically the same money. That's the biggest problem. I think they need to have a bigger gap, and maybe there will be some deals on these if they don't sell super hotly, or hopefully in time maybe they will adjust pricing a little bit there. But it is a good value proposition compared to the other competitors, though. Like an Audi A6, which is very dated at this point. They've been around, I don't know, over 5 years for that generation, and those actually have less power with the 55 version of those, but comparably equipped. Even with that lesser amount of power, they're coming out to be about $6,000 more for the Audi over this Genesis. Again, the Audis are definitely dated, so maybe there's more discounts to be had in the real world, but as far as just judging off MSRP prices, the Audi is more expensive and gives you, less tech. It's the prior gen tech, smaller screens, all that. But the Audis are very nice as well. So, not a bad choice if you're willing to pay the premium, or if the deal lines up for you. Overall, the bottom line is the G80 is still a really nice vehicle, especially in a vacuum. And if the BMW doesn't have any appeal to you, then you have a great value proposition here with the Genesis still. You have, again, top-notch, brand new tech, still the same great, Jekyll and Hyde thing of having a sofa-like ride whenever you want it, but then also having the very dynamic qualities that I really love. This is one of the vehicles I would love to have as a daily driver personally. Like, I've always really liked this generation, the G80, even though it doesn't get a lot of love, honestly, I think, from the buying public and even from journalists generally. I absolutely love it myself. I think it's fantastic, and that dual nature is just something that the other companies don't seem to do quite as well. They either go a little bit further on the one side or the other as far as sporty versus comfort. This, I think, really does such a great job of doing both so well. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the Genesis G80 Sport. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Genesis for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.